Let's bring in John McTernan in London. He's a political strategist and a former political secretary to UK Labour Prime Minister Tony Blair. Really good to have you with us, sir. We now have Canada, the UK and Australia joining a list of growing number of Israel's allies recognising a Palestinian state. You were an advisor to the former Prime Ministers of both the UK and Australia. How significant are these declarations?
Well, look, they're very significant. The Australian Labor Party has for some time been supporting the recognition of Palestine and Palestinian statehood and supporting that cause. The UK government is a very significant move, a fellow Labour government to the Australian Labour government. But the UK government is a member of the Security Council, the United Nations Security Council, a permanent member. So it's a very big move for a permanent member. Not just ourselves, but the French recognition too. These are major diplomatic moves, probably unprecedented. I think it's taken a while for the UK to come to this position because we hold such a central role in the United Nations. I think it's well worth considering this moment. And we're joining over 100, is it over 150, 160 nations who recognise Palestine. And this really needs to put pressure on the US, because they're the only people who can put pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu, and Netanyahu is the only person who can actually give proper access to humanitarian aid.
Yes, and we have had a response from the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He said outright that there will be no Palestinian state and that Israel will indeed be looking to expand its illegal settlements in the occupied West Bank in response to the recognition of a Palestinian state by a growing number of countries. This isn't a response that's likely to foster peace or indeed really encourage a two-state solution, is it?
No, I think Prime Minister Netanyahu saying that he wants not to recognise the Palestinian state is basically saying he believes there's a one-state solution in Israel-Palestine, and there's no peace with a one-state solution. There's no peace with the occupation of Gaza. There's no peace with increased occupation of the West Bank. But it feels as though the Israeli government at the moment, under Benjamin Netanyahu's leadership, they don't want peace, they want permanent war. It's important to note that just in the recent weeks, Netanyahu has compared Israel to Sparta. So, a context of permanent war, permanent aggression. And we know the thing about peace, the key about peace, you have to make peace with your enemies. There will only be peace, lasting peace and security for Israel and for Palestine if the Israeli government accepts that there has to be a two-state solution. A one-state solution is just a commitment to permanent war, total war.
Of course, despite the growing number of Israel's Western allies declaring a Palestinian state, it is the United States that would be key here, and it's unlikely that the Trump administration would follow similar moves, at least while he's president. How key is US support for this recognition, also for the wider plan that the French president is proposing, that the recognition of the Palestinian state would be part of a wider peace process between the Palestinians and Israel?
Look, in the end, it is American support that is holding the Israeli war machine up. If the Americans stepped away, if the Americans applied pressure, if the Americans applied any sanctions, if the Americans wanted any humanitarian aid, then it would happen. But given that President Trump is implacable on this, and given that there can be no real change until the next presidential elections in 3 years' time, that leaves other countries have to get together. You know, Britain, Australia, the European Union as a bloc, even China. There's a lot of, they're very much mobilized, and there has to be mobilization for this because what's happening in Gaza is intolerable. The holding of the hostages for so long, intolerable. But the destruction of Gaza itself, the destruction that's wreaked havoc on infrastructure, civil infrastructure, on housing, on hospitals and schools, and has caused so many deaths of children, of women, of just innocent civilians. And the loss of civilian life on both sides is something that's got to come to an end. And so, yes, the one country that could definitely move Israel is the USA. But there are many other countries in the world, and we just have to keep on putting on the pressure and working together with President Macron, with the European Union, with any countries who actually wish to see peace rather than continued warfare.
Okay, John McTernan, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you so much again for